Tapping a few trees today.
That just gives me a guide that I can use. And here's a closer look at one of the spiles. So let's just do it. And you just want to go at a slight angle. Oh, there it is. You can see the sap coming out. You just take your spile and you give it a tap, tap, tap. And then you simply insert the hose into the bucket and you can see it's already starting to drip. Brick or a rock on it just to make sure that everything stays put if it gets a little too windy. Sap is flowing. That's what we want to hear. Hey folks, the birds are singing this morning and my sap buckets are getting full. So it's time to collect some and start the process of making maple syrup. Come join me. All right, so what I usually do is just bring an extra bucket with me and that way I can empty some. Set the block down. And these don't have too much in them just yet. Good to go. Probably about a gallon. So there's about a gallon in each of these buckets. I'll just do these first two to get things started, and then I'll come back down and collect the rest. It takes quite a while for the sap to boil down. Is a turkey fryer. It seems to be about the easiest, probably not the most efficient way, but we use propane gas. Find that the big tank here usually gets us through a normal batch of syrup. And it's actually better to use something that is wider to increase the surface area for evaporation, but this works okay. We do it right here on the deck, so it's close to the house and I can monitor it pretty easily. So I just add a little bit to start with as I start the flame. That way it doesn't get too hot before I get things going. So luckily it's not too windy today. Some days we have to put sort of a windshield up so that we can keep the flame going. Initially, I make sure that the tank valve is off and that the spigot for the turkey fryer is completely off before I get going. And then I'll turn this on all the way. And this I sort of have to play with. I open it up slightly, and then I usually have to adjust as I get the flame going to make sure that it's at the right level to get things boiling. So after the gas is on, you just press this little lever for just about 10 seconds until the flame gets going. So now I adjust the flame. You don't want it too high or too low. And it's just kind of a matter of adjusting up and down until you get it to where you need it to be. Hear the flame burning a little bit too high, so I'm going to turn it back a bit. All right, so we have a little bit of steam. So I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of this bucket in. This first batch has been going for about a half an hour now. Now, several times during the process, you have to skim off the foam on top. It's sediment and such from the tree sides. And now we'll go collect some more sap. Just out to collect my next bucket of sap, and I noticed the bees were out and about today. And the rooster is being obnoxious as usual. Oh, they're bringing in pollen. Hold on. There we go. Look at their hind legs. Oh, the willows must be in bloom. Bringing in white pollen. Good for the bees. Though that doesn't bode well for my maple trees. They're probably going to bud up soon, which means that's the end of the sap. Let's collect some more sap. Hey there, big guy. I'm not gonna mess with you girls. All right, so I think I'm only gonna get one batch of maple syrup this year. This is another silver maple, gets a little bit more sun, but the buds are breaking. Yeah, I see flowers up there. So today is pretty much the day. Well, I should at least get a few jars, I think. See how it goes. All right, so I'm going to skim this foam off the top here. This is just minerals, sediment, and things like that that come from the tree itself. Impurities, you just have to skim that off. Kind of like cooking a pot of beans. Once the tree begins blooming, it changes something in the sap and makes it more likely to be bitter. So what I collect today is going to be it. Unfortunately, I won't be able to do the multiple batches. Largely dependent upon the weather. So I'll add about half of this now, and then I'll repeat the process when I get to about the same amount. Maple sap becomes syrup at about 7 degrees over the temperature of boiling water. And so water boils at about 212 degrees. I have this really handy kitchen thermometer. It's fitted with an extension probe. I just put that in there, and then I can put this right down into the sap and check it. And so I can also set an alarm. And the reason that's important, I'll go ahead and set this to 215 degrees. As the water evaporates, it becomes more and more concentrated. But once sap reaches 216 degrees, it should be filtered through one of these lightweight filters. And so that removes this cloudy material called sugar sand, and it will settle in the bottom of your syrup. So you want to make sure to get it out. And the temperature is pretty important. Sugar goes through lots of chemical changes at different temperatures. And so the temperature is really important throughout this process. I set the alarm for 215 degrees, and that way I'm prepared. And so then I'll run it through these filters. And so these are all washable. I've used these for several years. And so I filter the sap through these first, and then a much thicker, denser filter. I usually filter it at that point right into the kitchen pot, and I will take this inside. The reason we don't do this whole process inside to begin with is because it generates just way too much moisture inside the house. Once it's in the house and boiling down, I will reset this alarm for about 218 degrees, because 219 is what I'm shooting for. And so that gives me a minute to get, like I said, get everything ready, and then I'll just pack it into clean mason jars. It's important too, you want to make sure that it should be bottled at between 180 and 185 degrees. That way it forms a seal and makes it shelf stable. This is an important process too, and you don't want to reheat it because then you'll get that sugar sand again. It's a delicate process, one that you have to sort of keep a close eye on. And then you want to make sure that you clean these really well while everything is fresh. Don't let the sugar, don't let the syrup, settle in here, because it will ruin this cloth. So I just run it through hot water, no detergent. Detergent leaves a residue, flavor, scent behind. And this is the apparatus that I'll put it in. I also use this for filtering my beeswax and oil. I have some filters for filtering cooking oil as well. Pretty handy. So I figured since the sap is done, I'll go ahead and collect my buckets and tubing and such, give everything a rinse before I put it away for the year. That was a short trip. And so I don't do anything special when I take the spile out of the tree. It drips for a while, but then it'll close up. So then I just give everything a real thorough rinse with hot water, and that way I don't get any mold in the tubing. I'll let everything dry, and then these are the same buckets that I use for honey, for fermentation, making mead, that kind of thing too. Hey folks, so we're on day 2 of boiling down sap. It's a lot windier today, but I don't have much left to do, so I had to create this little windbreak that you see right here so that I can get things going. And so basically I just need to bring it up to temp, and then we will filter it and take it inside for the final process. Once the sap reaches 216 degrees, it needs to be filtered through one of the lightweight filters. But since I have 2 sets, I use both the heavyweight and the lightweight filter both times. And so this first filtering removes the majority of the sugar sand. And so I just do that over another pot, and then that's usually about the same time I take it inside. And so then I will filter it again through the second set. And then I'll place that over another clean pot. And this pot I use has a pour spout, so it makes it really easy to pour into the jars. Of course, this year I'm not going to have very much since the season was cut short, but I'll take what I can get. It's just to keep us happy for a little while anyway. Take a look at it real quick. See there? It's getting a little thicker, so I know the time is getting close. Now, if you process it at a lower temperature, that means that it might spoil. That means there's too much water. If you go higher than 219, that means the sugar, it will crystallize. The sugar solution gets really concentrated, and that means that the sugar is precipitating out of that solution, and that's the crystallization that you see, which I've actually had happen. It doesn't change the taste, but it will eventually continue to crystallize and basically become maple sugar. So we're getting really close now. I'm getting ready to filter it into the first pan. And so it's kind of touchy. You don't want it to hit the bottom because that's falsely hot, and you don't want it to just be on the surface because that would be too cool. All right, it's go time. So this is heartbreaking. I don't have a big batch, but I'll take what I can get. So you can see the sediment and the sugar sand that it produces. So quite a bit of gunk. But if I rinse this out really quick with hot water, it's reusable for several years. All right, so here's how I have things set up. Once the temperature reaches 219 in the big pan, then I will filter it again using both the lightweight and the heavyweight filters. And so this pan works really well. It has pouring spouts, and so that makes it easy to pour into the jars. I've got my thermometer hooked up. I've got it set for 218. 219 is what I'm going for, but I want the alarm to go off at 218 so that I'm ready. Jar is ready. Rolled pretty quickly though. It needs to be pretty hot, at least 180, 185, and that way it will form a seal on. I use little mason jars, and it will form a seal to make it shelf stable. And there she goes. So we reached 219 degrees, and I'm just gonna pour it in. Slowly drain. All right, I stretched that a bit, but 4 half pints perfectly. I'll confirm that each of the jar seals. It's puffed up right now from the steam pressure, and so that should pull back in once that seal forms, and then we should be shelf